In this lecture, we're going to learn about the last type of testing called end-to-end testing. It's one of the more challenging types of tests to write. A lot can go wrong with end-to-end testing. We'll be talking about why you'll want to write end-to-end tests, the problems that come with it, and we'll explore the solution we'll be going with in this lecture. First things first, what is end-to-end testing? End-to-end testing is a way to check if an application is behaving correctly by automating a browser to mimic user behavior. It's basically what we've been doing already whenever we write a new feature. After writing some code, we would manually visit the application in the browser, perform some tasks, and verify the app responded with the desired results. This process is what's called manual testing. An end-to-end test does the same thing, except we can write a program to do the things we would usually do. We can tell the program to click links, fill out forms, scroll around, etc. We can completely automate the testing process. In theory, it seems like end-to-end tests can be the best approach to testing. There are a couple of problems with end-to-end testing. There's a reason why it should only make up about 10% of your tests. The first reason is that they're very slow. A couple of things need to happen before the test is complete. The program needs to turn on a server, compile your project, open the browser, navigate to the app, perform your tests, capture actions, and generate a report. It's a series of steps that need to be taken for effectively verifying the tests pass. You'll see how slow a test can run when we run our first test. The second reason is that they can be unreliable. An end-to-end test runs the application as if it were fully functional. This means that any APIs we're using will need to work. If a request takes too long, this can cause the test to fail. The last reason is it's difficult to debug. If an error occurs, you'll need to take the time to figure out why. This process can be challenging because, unlike unit tests, we're loading the entire application. The problem can be with any component. It can be with any third-party module we installed. It's challenging to track where the root cause of an error occurred. This doesn't mean that you should never write end-to-end tests. In fact, they're the most useful kind of tests you can write because you will be able to actually see how the app behaves. This perspective is something that unit or snapshot testing can't provide you. Both types of tests are great for testing individual parts, but at the end of the day, you will need to see if everything works together in unison. Two components may work separately, but do they work together? End-to-end testing can help answer that. Another disadvantage of unit testing and snapshot testing is that they can't help you test navigating between pages. You can't test how layouts will react whenever the state or route changes. End-to-end testing doesn't have these limitations. There's one last question before we look at some code. What should we be testing? You should have as few end-to-end tests as possible. You will want to test the main actions that will be performed on your app. For example, authentication is a typical action that may perform. If you're building an e-commerce shop, you may want to write a test for checking out. You don't want to test small actions like navigating from one page to the next. There are various tools available for performing end-to-end tests. The two most popular tools are Nightwatch and Cypress. For this course, we'll be using Cypress. I find it to be the easiest to use out of the two. It's much faster and well documented. The community is smaller than Nightwatch, but that's starting to change. More and more developers are switching to Cypress. On the menu, there's a page called Pricing. Click on it. First and foremost, Cypress is entirely free and open source. There aren't any limitations to using Cypress. The development team behind Cypress has developed an additional service called Cypress Dashboard. Their service allows you to run tests on their servers instead of on your own machine. It can even run tests in parallelization, which is running multiple tests at the same time. This feature will produce faster results. It does cost money. Still, it is an excellent service if you're working on a team. You don't have to use this service. Cypress can run on your machine with minimal setup. We'll be running Cypress on our machines. Fortunately, Cypress has been configured with our projects. We can start using it right away. In your editor, open a file called Cypress. It can be found in the root directory of the project. The Cypress file is a configuration file that Cypress will search for whenever you run it. By default, Vue has configured this file by adding two options called spec pattern and base URL. The spec pattern option will contain a pattern for finding test files. As you can see, any test file created in the Cypress/E2E directory will be executed. As for the second option, Cypress will launch our app in the browser. It'll need the URL for viewing our app. Once again, the URL has been configured for us. Let's check out the files in the Cypress/E2E directory. There are three additional directories called E2E, Fixtures, and Support. The E2E directory will contain our tests. We'll explore these files in a moment. The Fixtures directory can contain dummy data. In some cases, we may need to fill out forms with dummy data. We can store data from within this file. Lastly, the Support directory can contain additional commands to run in Cypress. For example, we can outsource actions such as authenticating a user into an app. Our focus is going to be on E2E directory. In the next lecture, let's begin writing our first test.